Welcome to Audacity Marketing with Hazel Kimpo and Michelle Frechette. On this podcast, we'll challenge you to think differently and break free of the same old strategies. We'll push you out of your comfort zone and encourage you to think outside the box. So take notes, make bold decisions, and be audacious. Hey Hazel, ready to be audacious?
Let's be audacious, Michelle.
I mean, I'm kind of in an audacity mood today, so I think it works. Very excited. I actually gave a presentation today, and I was stressed about it first, and then afterwards, like, I don't know why I was worried. It went so well. And part of that is the audacity to, do it in your own timing and all of that. And as we talk about audacity, let's talk about social media. Like we've talked a little bit, we actually prepare a little bit beforehand. I don't know if people know that, but it's not just always let's wing it, but we have a couple talking points. And one of the things we talk about is social media is a great place to practice audacity. So you had some good thoughts on that. What were some of your thoughts about audacity and social?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about some of the ways that we're going to talk about today some of the ways it's so important to have a true brand voice in social. But I think one of the things that I love about social media, and especially where it is today, how fast moving it is, don't know if Elon Musk is going to buy Twitter today or something's going to happen tomorrow.
Right.
The goldfish memory of social media allows you a lot of forgiveness to be audacious and learn what audacious means in your brand voice. And I think it's the perfect platform to try that out. Michelle, I know you are constantly experimenting on social.
I love Twitter especially. And I know that right now it's this giant chaotic, Elon Musk mess or whatever, but it's still working for brands. It's harder. Like you and I were talking, it's like, I don't necessarily see all my friends' posts. If I comment on your stuff, then I'm going to see your stuff more often. And like they've changed the algorithm somehow or whatever. But what I'm seeing is it's still working for brands. And the brands that I'm posting for are still getting engagement because of some of the audacious things that I do within Twitter for those brands. So I love a good meme. I think memes
You
have
are a
their
meme
place.
queen.
I think there's room for them, right? And so within reason. So like I run several plugin and brand accounts for WordPress brands. I don't think any of them should aspire to be Wendy's, right? So they shouldn't have the brand voice of Wendy's that is mocking all of their competitors.
I was going to say the same thing.
That is
Absolutely.
not a WordPress ecosystem okay thing to do. But we can poke fun at our industry without poking fun at each other. So, for example, I built a meme earlier this week, and it's Tommy Lee Jones, and he's kind of like looking down over his glasses, like, "Are you serious?" And I thought, I put my face when the client asks if I can make the logo bigger, right? Because that's one of those terrible things. Like we all have had that shared experience if you've built a website, and our customers at Stellar are people who are building websites, and that resonated with a lot of people. We're a small brand as far as social media goes. We have less than 2,000 followers, but I have 1,200 people have seen and interacted with that one tweet.
That's amazing. And I think a little bit about being audacious is it really is speaking to your customer in the right voice. And it can be scary sometimes because sometimes, especially if you're like Michelle and know the customer so well, other people might doubt it. It's like, oh, that's not a joke. I understand. But if your customer understands it, and Wendy's is a good example of that in their lane, right? They went this lane of like they wanted to go after a young customer who was edgy, and it really worked for that. I don't think everyone should interpret audacity as sarcasm or
Or
weird
rudeness, or
whatever.
yeah.
It's none of that. It's really authenticity is what it boils down to. But it does take a little bit of guts to be authentic like that, I think.
It
So
does. And what's really interesting is you and I work together at Stellar. And when I first started taking over the Stellar Twitter account, I was still working at Give, and I was like, "Hey, I want to play with it." And you're like, "Here's the password. Here's your login. Go for it." Right.
Yep.
And I started posting some things and asking some questions and interacting giving us a brand voice that hadn't been really established yet, at least social wise. And I had one person, Topher DeRoja, message me. He's like, "Are you running the Stellar Twitter account?" And I was like, "Why do you ask?" He goes, "Because it sounds like you." I'm like, "Yes, it's me." Like, hello.
I
So
like your signature has gone through, but that's like because you and that stellar brand voice is so synonymous, it works so
yeah.
well.
Yeah, and it was like almost like a slow clap, like "all right, good job" kind of thing, because he could put the person with it and understand that the brand went so well together. But yeah, it made me laugh. He's the only person that's ever come to me and said that too, so it's not like, oh, Michelle's tweeting this and whatever. But yeah, so a lot of
I
fun.
think
But
there is some level of audacity in when we talk about video in the world of social as well, because it just takes the guts to go out there and do it one time. It is so hard for people who haven't made videos, even a TikTok video or anything like that, to go do it. And I mean, really, honestly, that is the audacity to go create a video and think someone's gonna like it and whatever. But
right.
it really does take it. And I think the more authentic you are in those voices when you go whip up a quick video and don't worry about all of the things about it all the time if it's not a polished video, um, works really well when you're doing a social media voice. Of course, there's other channels when you're going to do a more polished tutorial, those sort of things. But I think if you think
Absolutely.
about video from different lenses, social media being one of them, there's a lot of fun you can have being audacious without it taking a lot of extra effort.
Mm-hmm. Which you just gave me a really good idea um for a video going forward. And I'm gonna sit on it and not say it out loud yet, but when it comes out, it's gonna be audacious. But
Oh, can't wait.
I know we'll talk about it later. But you're right. So brand voice is important, right? So it's not just it's not Michelle's voice. It's the way Michelle is portraying that brand voice, though, right? That people could sometimes hear my tone or something in it. But my if you go to my Twitter, it doesn't sound like the Stellar voice at all, because my Twitter is absolutely authentically me and isn't not tainted's not the right word, but mingled in or whatever with
But what do
kind of.
you think about that mix of there's somewhat of a human voice to a brand? What do you think about that?
I think it's important. I think that I gave a talk today on community and building community around your product, and you can't build community around a product that doesn't have a human quality to it, right? So like when everybody's drank Coca-Cola since the dawning of Coca-Cola, but in the 70s they had that, I'd like to teach the world to sing. I'd like to
Yeah.
give the world a Coke. And it wasn't a bunch of cartoons on a hill. It wasn't, a song behind pouring a Coca-Cola. It was people sitting on a hill with candles in a kumbaya kind of thing, which was the 70s vibe, right? And it humanized Coca-Cola to the point where it wasn't just a soft drink, it was an experience, and
An
people and
experience.
humans
Yes.
experience things. And so I think to show the humanity in your brand is super important. Does it have to have the face of an actual person? Like this person is that brand? No, it doesn't have to be the CEO that's in every commercial, for example, but it has to show the humanity and the reason why humans would interact with who you are.
And it's amazing. That's so true. And it's amazing how it took a, I don't know, B2B SaaS brands a good decade or two to realize like, oh, there's humans making the buying decisions behind these. I don't need to just have a list of features for a robot. There's an actual human making the
Yeah.
decision here, and they're going to make a decision on some logical things, but some things that
Mm-hmm.
are just a feeling. And if the brand feels good and it feels like you're speaking the language, whether it's payroll software or Coke.
Yep, exactly. And am I going to use the same tactics on Twitter as I am on my blog? Nope, not at all. But it can still have the same voice within the whole brand from platform to platform and deliver things to the audience that's there that interact with and resonate with that audience.
Yeah, one way I've heard it described is you describe your brand as, say, a celebrity. Let's say my brand is George Clooney. And then you describe your brand at a cocktail party. Who are
Mm,
they? Are they still George Clooney? If they're kind of dressed up, a little bit polished. But my favorite is like, okay, well, who is your brand after like three drinks? And which I think is interesting, right? Because if like
Yeah.
you're George Clooney, but after 3 drinks, you're I don't know who do we got out there, Russell Brand. Uh,
Wow, only
it's
3 drinks from Clooney to Brand. Okay.
I think you can use that exercise to sort of
Yeah,
see how your amplified version and muted version of your brand works on different platforms, right?
absolutely.
Your business meeting George Clooney is in LinkedIn, but your 3 cocktails in George Clooney is hanging out on TikTok.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense. And it really is about that audience and how those people who are seeing that and interacting with that are going to resonate with it or not. And if your brand is only putting out blog posts with marketing type around and marketing text around that blog post, you are missing a huge opportunity to be audacious and interact with an audience that will resonate with your brand if you only give it a voice.
Absolutely. One thing that you always do really well, Michelle, is respect the customer. And what I mean by that is like don't try to sell something that you wouldn't also like or
Yeah.
use language that you wouldn't also like, whether it's in your market or not. I think business owners and marketers tend to get in their heads a little bit when I don't know, they start thinking about the customer in a weird way that's sort of deeply even in the wrong angle, and they forget that it's a person. And if you step back and look
Mm-hmm.
at the way that you wrote perhaps some cheesy copy, would you buy that? Probably
Right.
not, right? Like sometimes it just
Yeah.
takes a little bit to step back, and customers fall into that trap often, and it's often when they're trying to be too safe. So audacity
Yeah.
comes in.
I agree. And the last thing I wanted to bring forward as somebody who is creating the voice of the brand a lot of times, I've always kind of just like created, and then if it didn't work or somebody didn't like it, I'll be like, "Oops, sorry," right? Like I I I don't
Absolutely.
I don't vet every tweet through a group of people. I don't vet every post in a Facebook group or I mean blog content absolutely, right? That has to have sets of eyes, that has to have SEO, all of those other things. But social media interactions, again, the goldfish, memory,
Absolutely.
tweet first, ask forgiveness later.
Yeah, so let's see. So our three tips when we boil down to it for social media and being audacious. We've got strong brand voice. Tell me a little bit about that, Michelle. Strong brand
Yep.
voice.
So your brand should stand out as itself. It should be something that really speaks to people, and you should be able to picture a persona of whether it's a real person like George Clooney or just like this fictitious person in your mind, like the most interesting man in the world, right? For
Yes,
Dos Equis,
great one.
he's an actor. He's not a real person, but he represents who you think of as that brand, and that's what you want to have. Is you want to have somebody pictured in your head that represents that brand.
Absolutely. Second is go with your gut. This is one that I think, as Michelle just was speaking about, is sometimes if you're a person managing social, take that as a badge of honor and like you know post and ask for forgiveness later. I'm
Mm-hmm.
giving a tip of tip three, a hint of tip three,
They go
but
hand
it
in
is
hand.
going with your gut. It ties in together. The go with your gut of it is so important. If you're
Mm-hmm.
deep in social, it's likely that you understand the language of what people are speaking on social more than anyone else in your office, more than anyone else
Mm-hmm.
on your team.
Yep. And sometimes we make bad decisions, right? So sometimes we think something's going to resonate and it doesn't. There's mea culpa for a reason. There's apologies for a reason, and there's always the delete button. Yes, somebody's probably screenshot it and it will live forever, but it doesn't have to stay in your timeline forever.
That said, I mean, obviously, always act with respect and not be if you
Yes.
like you should that's why I don't recommend edgy as a tactic, right? Because it could get you into trouble in
Mm-hmm.
spots where something that you might think is funny is not funny to
Yeah.
people that you weren't even aware of the issue of that. And it's just unnecessary drama. So that's the only thing
Yeah.
I would say is don't try to be edgy just for the sake of being edgy.
Right. No, I think that's very good. That's very good advice. Absolutely. I saw a TikTok yesterday and the woman said, "Why does nobody read and approve ads before they're published?" Now, remember, ads are different than social media, right? But she was in the airport and she walked by this humongous ad that something along the lines of, I'm going to make up numbers here, like 250,000 people are blind. Let's reduce that to zero. And it made it sound like, let's go out and kill all the blind
Yeah,
people. It certainly wasn't edgy, but also not well thought out. So you can be fun, you can be audacious, just also perhaps be a little careful.
Absolutely. And then Michelle, give us the last one of ask for forgiveness, not permission.
Yeah, so if you are somebody who has been hired to do your job, you shouldn't have to worry about getting everything approved. I love to post content that is in informative. I love to post content that tells about the great products that we have, but I also like to post content that is engaging. I want to make sure we're going to show up in the algorithm for people, that they're going to see it, and I don't have to be tweeting it out or copying the tweet and sending it to my friends to interact with. I want it to be something that naturally comes up. And so sometimes you have to create things that are a little more fun and a little more edgy, like the memes that I've created, or fun polls.
Yes,
Polls
absolutely.
are so much fun because people can interact quickly, and a poll or a meme that people will like because it's made them laugh or because it made them want to give their opinion are a way to drive engagement and show your worthiness, and then therefore help you with the algorithm in social media.
I think that's great. And then I mean, it's so great to think about the absolute worst case scenario if you have a post that doesn't work is that like it gets maybe 10 views and no likes. And that if that's the worst thing that happens in the day, that's not that bad.
Some of my funniest tweets had no engagement. I'm like, what is wrong with people? I think it's hysterical. That's okay. It's okay. You can always retweet it later if it just didn't fall through.
That's the trick. That's the trick. All right,
Anyway,
Michelle. Well, this has been great
thank
today.
you. All right, we'll see everybody next week. Be
See you
audacious.
next time.
This has been Michelle Rochette and Hazel Kimpo with Audacity Marketing. Dare to be different and dominate your market with Audacity.